The New York Islanders now have a win under their belts, but what will it take for them to win again on Tuesday and extend the series? We've got that and a lot more coming up on today's Locked On Islanders podcast.
Your Locked On Islanders, your daily podcast on the New York Islanders. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome, everybody, to the Monday edition of the Locked On Islanders podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I want to thank everyone who makes Locked On Islanders your first listen every day. Don't forget to subscribe on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts so you can get new episodes as soon as they drop. Today's episode is brought to you by Monopoly Go. I admit it, I have a competitive side, and that side is a big fan of Monopoly Go, the mobile hit twist on classic Monopoly. So join your friends and download Monopoly Go, now free on the App Store or Google Play. We have got a lot to discuss on today's show, but first, if there's something Islanders related on your mind, if you have a question, a comment, maybe a topic you'd like us to discuss on a future episode, you can email us at lockedonislanders@gmail.com. And if you leave your first name and where you're from, we're happy to mention you on the show when we discuss whatever's on your mind. You could also follow the show on X at Locked On Isles, and you could follow me, Gil Martin, on X at Ice Wars, NYR vs NYI. We'll keep you up to date on all things Islanders all year long, and I am live tweeting during nearly every Islanders home and road game. So join me for some instant insight and analysis, and it's great to talk Islanders hockey with you, game time or anytime. Well, we exhale. The Islanders extend the series with their double overtime win over the Carolina Hurricanes Saturday afternoon on Long Island, and now Game 5 tomorrow, Tuesday, 7:30 Eastern Time in Raleigh. And again, just like it's going to be as long as this series goes on, it's win or go home for the New York Islanders. But I did want to touch on one thing. And, I try on this podcast to be fair. And when an Islanders player is doing well, I want to, basically say they're playing well. And when they're struggling, I basically am going to say that, hey, this guy is having difficulty. This is the part of the game he's having difficulty with, and hopefully he can straighten things out, et cetera, et cetera. Well, the one thing I did want to mention, a player who rather quietly has put together a 5-game point streak in which he has 6 points. That is Anders Lee. Lee has 1 point in each of the Islanders' 4 playoff games. That's an assist in Game 1, a goal in Game 2, and assists in Game 3 and 4. And he also had 2 assists in the last game he played during the regular season, which was the next to last game against the New Jersey Devils. So overall, you have a 5-game point streak for Anders Lee, where he has 1 goal and 5 assists. And, the thing about Lee, in 3 of the 4 games, he's also been a little more physical. He has 2 blocks. He has 9 hits in the 4 playoff games, including 4 in Game 2 and 3 in Game 4. And he's also just playing maybe the best we've seen him play all season. And it's been a disappointing year for Anders Lee. Let's face facts about that. He dropped from 28 goals a year ago to 20 this season. His point total dropped from 50 a year ago to just 37 this season. He started the year on the top line and could not sustain that, dropped down to the second or third line, depending on when in the season we're talking about. And in the playoffs, it's been Pierre Engvall, JG Pageau, and Anders Lee playing together as a unit that has really helped the New York Islanders. And it's not just Lee, it is also Engvall, who is playing well. Pageau, been outstanding in the faceoff circle and is doing a solid job offensively, scored a goal, an important goal in the Game 4 victory over the Hurricanes on the power play. So as far as the Islanders' four lines are concerned, I think the most consistently productive has been the Pageau, Lee, Engvall line. And I think both Lee and Engvall have really played some of their best hockey all year in the playoffs. And that's what you need to see. Look, obviously, when it comes to Anders Lee, here is a guy who, is almost 34 years old. And I think there's very little doubt that he is starting to slow down a little bit as a player. He's going to turn 34 July 3rd. And, he's earning $7 million a year to get 20 goals and 37 points. That's not value as far as the Islanders are concerned for that $7 million investment. And having him step up his game in the postseason has been absolutely huge for the New York Islanders. It is something they needed. They needed more of it from, during the regular season, but to get it when it counts really does help. And I think largely it's the same for his line mates, where they have found a way. Now, the other thing you're talking about when you're talking about Anders Lee, he's the captain of this team. You need leadership from Anders Lee. And I think so far, for the most part, we've seen leadership from him. But what we do need to also see is leadership going forward. And, when you have a new coach like Patrick Waugh, who's been here less than half a season, the job of your captain is magnified. You need your captain to step up and help increase communication between the coach and the players, to lead, to be that liaison between the coaching staff and the players on the roster. And how, the fact that the Islanders didn't quit after being down 3-0 in the series, I think is important for the New York Islanders. And the fact that they played pretty well, I would say, in 3 of the 4 games, I think the Islanders played well. I think they outplayed Carolina in 2 of the 4 games overall. But the fact that they haven't quit, the fact that they are still fighting on and taking it one game at a time, all of that, I think, speaks favorably about Anders Lee. And obviously the key for the Islanders now is to have that leadership and that improved play by Lee, Pageau, and Engvall continue. And, I'll mention Engvall briefly because I know a lot of people don't like his lack of physicality. And it bothers me too. I mean, there's a 50-50 puck battle along the boards. I'm not betting on Pierre Engvall to win that 50-50 puck battle. He's not a very physical player. He's not going to hit often, and he's not a grinder. But what he does have is a long reach and speed. Those are the two things he brings to the table. And it is now up to Pierre Engvall to utilize those things to be successful in the playoffs. So far, he's been better. And again, like Anders Lee, I think Pierre Engvall has played his best hockey in the playoffs. And that's what you need. I mean, you go back, Anthony Beauvillier, Josh Bailey, 2 former Islanders who I understand why the Isles decided to trade them away or let go of them. But at the same time, those were two guys who raised their game in the postseason. And that's what you need now in the clutch. When it matters most, you need your players to raise their game and take it to the next level. If you don't, guess what? It's more or less going to be over. So let's see if Anders Lee and JG Pajot and Pierre Engvall, that line, and really the rest of the Islanders as a team will be able to continue to raise their game and play their best hockey. That is one important factor if the Islanders hope to continue to win and prolong this series and bring it back Thursday for a Game 6 on Long Island. We have got a lot more to get to on today's show. We will talk a little bit about some of the things the Islanders need to do to get back into this series. And oh yes, for our Islanders birthday of the day, a defenseman who spent 1.5 seasons as an Islander in the very late 1990s and very early 2000s. Let's see if you can guess who that is. We've got that and a lot more coming up on today's Locked On Islanders podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. It's playoff time in the NBA and the NHL. Baseball's in full swing, and FanDuel is your place to bet on every game. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed. That's $150 win or lose. You can bet on everything from slap shots to home runs to slam dunks, all on the app that is safe, secure, and easy to use. And Islander fans, check out the odds and prop bets available for Tuesday's game in Raleigh. If you want to bet that the Islanders win the game, you want to bet on whether Matthew Barzal plays well and scores another goal, lots of different bets and odds for you to check out on the FanDuel app. So what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and make your first bet an automatic win. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Today's episode is also brought to you by Game Time. Game Time is now an authorized ticket marketplace of the NBA, which makes getting playoff tickets even faster and easier. Prices on the Game Time app actually go down the closer it gets to tip-off. With killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, and the view from your seat on the app, you also get their lowest price guarantee, so Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying tickets. And look, you get last-minute deals with you could save up to 60% off buying last-minute tickets for sports, concert, comedy, theater, and more. So take the guesswork out of buying NBA tickets with Game Time. Just download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last-minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. The Locked On NFL Mock Draft is available now. Find the Ultimate 6-episode series on Locked On NFL Draft to hear who the local experts have locked on, picking for every NFL franchise, with live reactions from local college football experts and even the fantasy football angle. The Locked On NFL Mock Draft, available now on Locked On NFL Draft on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. So, one thing I do have to say, and there was an interesting quote from Rod Brindamore about this series. And to me, it's kind of interesting to read that quote and sort of get an idea of what Brindamore is saying. And remember, we're in the playoffs. Anything that a head coach says during the playoffs, you got to understand it is all psychological. You are trying to take your team and motivate them and gain some kind of an edge. So here's what Rod Brindamore said. We expected a long series, and we've got to focus on the next one. He said this after the Islanders won Game 4. When the games are even like they are, it's not like it was 3-0 and we were dominating. The game could have gone either way, just like the other 3. And I think Brindamore, look, the odds right now are the Islanders are a long shot. We know that to come back and win this series. And what Brindamore, the message he's trying to send to his team, essentially, is that, hey, this, even though we're up 3-1, this has not been a cakewalk by any stretch of the imagination. We need to be ready. We need to be, on top of things because this Islander team is more than capable of giving us a hard time. And I think that is absolutely a wise thing for Brindamore to say. And again, as I said earlier, I think that the Islanders have played better in 2 of the 4 games, or at least it's been even in 2 of the 4 games. And ironically, the game I think that the Islanders played their worst hockey in was game 2 when they held a 3-0 lead and eventually lost 5-3. I think overall from start to finish, in that game, the Islanders outplayed Carolina for maybe 8 minutes, and the rest of the game, Carolina was the better team, but the Islanders actually took advantage of their chances during that game and were able to get that lead and just couldn't hold it because they were being dominated throughout the game. I think in game 3, the Islanders played better overall, but just did not get good goaltending in the first half of that game. I think that, that cost them a potential win on home ice. And game 4, I think, was maybe a slight edge to Carolina, but the Islanders were right there every step of the way. And I think that's important as well. So that's a message being sent by Rod Brindamore. But I bring it up in part because I think it's true that most of these games have been very even, and the Islanders deservedly, could easily be even in this series rather than be down 3-1. And, one thing I think that was a difference in game 4 that the Islanders did better and that I think is hugely important for the Islanders, they got traffic in front of Frederik Andersen. And Andersen has been playing really great hockey throughout this series. Even in game 4, I don't think he didn't let in a soft goal out of any of them. I mean, the Barzal game winner was a deflection. The Pajot power play goal was a rebound. But, all of the 3 goals that the Islanders scored in that game were because the Islanders went to the net, screened Andersen, got rebounds, got deflections, got what, was described as dirty goals by Jack Capuano when he was the coach of the Islanders. You want to get those dirty goals. And I'll say this, if you're the Islanders, you're not matching the Carolina Hurricanes skill player for skill player if you go up and down the depth chart. You're just not, because Carolina has more depth on their roster offensively than the Islanders do. And, to me, if you're the Islanders, you have to get those dirty goals because you're not going to get as many of those pretty goals that you definitely want. I mean, look, you got 2 30-goal guys on this team in Sebastian Aho and Seth Jarvis. You've got Teuvo Teravainen and Martin Necas with 25 and 24. Svechnikov is a bona fide goal scorer if he's healthy. And then obviously you've got Jake Gensel, who has played very well in limited action, 25 points in 17 regular season games. The Islanders cannot match that depth. And then obviously Brady Shea, Brent Burns, Jacob Slavin, a lot of offensive firepower on the blue line as well. So, if this series is going to turn into a trading of chances up and down the ice with lots of open ice, that is not going to favor the New York Islanders by any stretch of the imagination. So, for the Islanders, one of the things they need to do, forget about style points, forget about making it look pretty. You don't have to skate around three guys and deke out the goalie and go top shelf and make Sports Center here. That's not the goal. The goal is to put the puck in the net. And we've seen right now, not just in this series, but really since he returned from the lineup, Frederik Andersen, if he sees the puck, he's most likely going to stop it. So the Islanders need to get in front of him, get those tips, those rebounds, those deflections, and absolutely try to get those dirty goals, because that's how they have to get it done if they want to repeat what they accomplished in Game 4. We have got more to discuss. We're going to break down some more things the Islanders need to do to be successful in Game 5 and force a Game 6, plus our Islanders birthday of the day. All that still to come on today's Locked On Islanders podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by your friends at Monopoly Go. We've all been there, either as a player or a fan. It's halftime. The scoreboard is not looking good. You're feeling low, not sure if you or your team can pull out a win. That's when you dig deep, lift up your head, and say to yourself, time to get back in the game, pull off some bank heists, and take as much of my friends' money as I possibly can. That's right. The smash hit game Monopoly Go lets you compete with your friends to get the most riches in the biggest empire. It's the Monopoly you love, but on your phone anytime, with tons of new twists, including leaderboards to compare your progress to your buddies. There's so much to do. You can play on countless dynamic Monopoly boards, make your friends bankrupt by smashing their landmarks with a wrecking ball, and charge other players rent for your iconic properties. You can even work with your friends to crack open community chests and tournaments, get extra rewards, and climb the leaderboard. So get back out there, put on your game face, and download Monopoly Go, now free on the App Store or Google Play. Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube, and now it's also available on the Amazon Fire TV and the free Fire TV channels app. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Find Locked On Sports Today, now available on the free Fire TV channels app. Going forward, what do the Islanders need to do? We started in the last segment with one important thing, and that is go to the net, work hard, get those dirty goals. You don't have to worry about making highlight reels or making the fans' jaws drop. You got to go out there and outwork Carolina, because, again, if Frederik Andersen sees the puck, he's likely to stop the puck. I think the second thing is this, and everydayers know we've been talking about it throughout the season and throughout the series. Stay out of the penalty box. Both goals in Game 4 that Carolina scored came when they had the extra attacker. And that is terrible. The Islanders just cannot afford to give Carolina extra opportunities with the man advantage. It is a recipe for disaster. And if you look at the season statistics, who had the second best power play in the NHL? The Carolina Hurricanes. 26.9% success rate for the Canes. You are not going to beat them if you give them more than 2 penalty power play chances. You give them more than 3, you're in trouble. You give them 2 or less, you've got a much better chance of winning, because the PK continues to be bad. I'm not going to mince words. It's just been bad. So there's that. And that is indeed critical for the Islanders. You still need to get the really good goaltending that Varley has been giving you in this series. I don't think he's had what I would consider a bad game in the 3 he started and the 4 he played in. Yeah, some games are better than others. Game 4, he was great. Game 3, he was perfect after relieving Ilya Sorokin. But you're going to need Varlamov to continue to play well. And then the other thing, and this has been an issue for the Islanders throughout the playoffs, but notice it happened in the game they won. It worked out. The Islanders' best players have to be their best players. And I'm talking about Bo Horvat, and I'm talking about Matthew Barzal, and I'm talking about Kyle Palmieri, and Brock Nelson, and Noah Dobson. You need the support guys to win in the playoffs. You don't just need your superstars, but I'll say it this way. If out of 18 skaters that dress, you have 5 passengers or 5 guys who are just not playing their A game, if more than one of your star players is on that list, you're in trouble, especially when you are a team like the Islanders that is not great offensively and, compared to, let's say, the elite teams around the league, and a team that just doesn't have a lot of margin for error here. So for the Islanders, you got to get good play from your best players, and then you can't retreat. You cannot give time and space for the skill players of the Carolina Hurricanes to enter the zone with speed, or even, and this is something the Canes love to do, you have a defenseman trailing the play, pinching in and creating offense. You got to be able, your forwards have to back check and pick up that guy, or you're going to be in trouble. So hopefully the Islanders learn from what worked in Game 4 and are able to continue that in Game 5. Not going to be easy. We'll see if the Islanders can get it done. Time now for our Islanders birthday of the day. And today is the 44th birthday of former Islanders defenseman Mathieu Biron. Biron, a native of Lac St. Charles, Quebec, 6'6", 230, a first-round pick of the Kings back in 1998, but made his NHL debut in 1999-2000 with the Islanders, stayed with the Isles through the 2000-2001 season, and then played for Tampa Bay and Florida and Washington before finishing his career in the minors and in Europe. He played in 253 career NHL games, 12 goals, 44 points, and 177 penalty minutes. Never appeared in a Stanley Cup playoff game. And Biron, more of a size guy and a two-way defenseman when push comes to shove. One of his better games with the Isles, February 13th, 2000, at Madison Square Garden. Kevin Weeks, the goalie for the Islanders, Mike Richter for the Rangers. And in this game, with the Islanders trailing by a score of 2-1, they tie it on a goal by Josh Green. And then with 3 minutes and 40 seconds left in the second period, our Islanders birthday of the day, Mathieu Biron, his 4th of the year, Jorgen Janssen and Mariusz Czerkowski, the assists. Claude Lapointe adds an empty netter, and the Islanders beat the Rangers at Madison Square Garden by a final score of 4-2 in this game. Mathieu Biron scored on his only shot on goal. It was an even strength goal. He was a +1. And yes, it was the game winner. He was on ice for almost 16 minutes in that game. So we want to wish a very happy 44th birthday to Mathieu Biron. He is our Islanders birthday of the day. I want to thank everyone who makes Locked On Islanders your first listen every day, everydayers. Tomorrow on the show, we will preview Game 5 of this series. Big game, again, win or go home for the New York Islanders. So make sure you join us for that. We'll hopefully also get an injury update on Matt Martin, and we'll talk a little bit more about whether Martin or Ruslan Ishkakov or maybe Julian Gauthier or somebody else should play if Martin isn't ready to go. We'll have all that and more. Until then, have a great day, everybody. Stay safe. And of course, let's go Islanders.